Hey everyone, it's Michael, and I want to talk about Persecuted. It's a Christian slash Catholic film, which I'm kind of surprised I can say this. I immediately seeing the cover of this, I got this movie for Christmas of 2014. I never got around to watching it because I just had this kind of put off from the cover. The cover is a man with his hand on his head. Of course, you're seeing it right now on my video. With a rosary hanging around his neck or his hand or something. I guess it's his neck. And you can see that, and of course the rosary is the immediate, hook saying, this is Catholic. and in the background there's a White House. A White House called the President's House. And I just immediately kind of got put off from this the day I got it, and I feel horrible about that. But after my experiences today, which I made two other videos, my introduction video and my actual video about how Satan has tried to get to me today, I decided when I got home today I wanted to, instead of sitting down and playing a little bit of Call of Duty or reading a little poetry or something, I decided I would watch a Christian movie. And I have this, and I have another one that has Cuba Gooding Jr. called Life of a King, I think. I think it's a Christian film. I could be wrong. It says the Dove Foundation approves of it, so I'm assuming that's them, because they're basically a Christian company. I went ahead and I picked Persecuted off of my shelf and decided to watch it. I think I'm going to try that on this channel, too, of doing book reviews for Christian and Christian movies and books, and, just delving into a little bit of the topics that they might bring up. Persecuted is honestly a completely misleading title for this movie. And at the same time, it's kind of understandable why it's called Persecuted. And yet, I feel like it's still one of those things that they're using that title to make money. And they have the White House in the background to try to make more money off of this. A lot of Christians nowadays, and I'm one of these too, believe that, the government is evil and that it's kind of trying its best to take out Christians. A lot of things are anti-Christian nowadays. Some people want to get rid of, the Ten Commandments in schools, yet in, Michigan, they want to put the satanic statue of I think it's the Baphomet, I think. I could be wrong. I think that's where it was, too. Anyway, they're doing stuff like that, and yet Christianity seems to be in, this dark light right now, and everybody keeps kind of pointing their fingers at us and saying that we're the bad people, and people keep, for some reason, blaming us as we were all the Westboro Baptist Church people. We're not all like that. Please don't make stereotypes. The world's already bad enough as it is about stereotyping, but that's just as bad. Not all of us are that evil, you know what I mean? And Persecuted is a misleading title, plain and simple. I understand why it's called Persecuted, but don't put the White House on the cover and try to act like this is some big political jargon, even though it sort of is, but at the same time it's kind of not. One thing that I was worried about is that it was going to be extremely Catholic. The only real thing that kind of sets this apart from other Christian films I've seen is that, number one, rosaries are present. Number two, there's drinking and smoking in the film, which I am not used to seeing in a Christian film that I bought from the Christian bookstore or received from somebody who purchased it from a Christian bookstore. And this is one of those situations, which is kind of weird. I'm not used to that. The film itself kind of I can't talk. This film itself kind of comes across as a drama slash thriller. And I have to say, I'm sorry, this film is so boring most of the time. The third act, however, is amazing. It becomes this very action-packed drama kind of thing. And it's not like I went into the film expecting this big drama thriller, but when you have a synopsis that goes along the lines of a pastor that refuses to, acknowledge and say that this bill in America that's going to try to be this religion equality thing between Muslims and Jews and Christians and, any religion, that it's all equal, that it's all good, that we're going to walk hand in hand into the light, is what they say, which is basically a reference to the devil. The way this pastor decides to say that, no, I'm not going to acknowledge that that's a good thing because I believe in the Word of God. And he doesn't really, act too much like a Catholic. He doesn't dress up like a Catholic, in the priesthood stuff. He doesn't go all that. They don't have, popes and, bishops and stuff like that thrown in here. They don't go for all of that. I'm kind of surprised they didn't. But I think it was, to try to not to offend people like me that weren't Catholic. To me, if you don't know me, I don't consider Catholicism, and I don't think a lot of Christians that are actual Christians that, understand the religion don't consider Catholics Christians. This film is like a Christian film stuck within a Catholic body, if that makes any sense. it's kind of obnoxious that it's called Persecuted, like I said, because it's like they're trying to make out this film that's about Christianity being persecuted by the government and by just, councilmen and whatnot and politicians. And it sort of is, but at the same time it's not, because it's disguised as a drama thriller. This pastor gets a murder blamed on him, and, they take these scandalous photos of him while he's unconscious, and basically drug him, and he escapes, and he goes into kind of a fugitive state, like he's kind of running away. Everybody, the FBI and the CIA are so stupid that they're blaming him for the murder. It's amazing how their fingerprinting and stuff don't work out too well. And yet, the film is not a bad movie. Like I said, the first 2/3 of the film are kind of just, a little empty, a little kind of dull, and they don't really explore this idea of how, when you're in the worst times, that God can get you through it. They kind of branch out into that a little bit later on, but like I said, the third act, that's why the third act is mostly my favorite, because the third act really does some interesting things that I did not expect to ever see in a Christian film. And there's actual blood in this movie. Wow. That is something I'm not used to. I've seen that in like the Revelation Road films sometimes, very rarely. I'm going to underline that. Very, very rarely do you ever see blood in any of those films, and I don't think this is made by Pureflix, by the way. I don't know who made it. Millennium, I think? I don't know. The film itself is not completely awful and completely a waste of time. If anything, it's not like the film called New World Order that is kind of hilariously awful and then has a really kind of intriguing idea that's just sort of inspired and kind of interesting towards the end of the film. It's not like that. Persecuted's third act kind of, to me at least, makes up a little bit, just a tiny bit, for the first two acts being so just kind of jargon and kind of just empty and soulless in a lot of ways. I was expecting a film that was going to shove rosaries and the Virgin Mary down my throat, and it didn't go that route. I was really surprised, and I have to commend them on that. I have to kind of give them a little round of applause for that, because they didn't go that route, and that's really what I was expecting, too. I feel like if you're a Christian kind of like me that, once again, doesn't consider Catholics a Christianity, or a branch of Christianity, even though there shouldn't be branches, it should just be one thing, you know what I mean? If you're one of those people kind of like me, you might get a little distracted, but not too heavily. It's not like they're trying to throw a message in your face about how all the other branches of Christianity are not Christianity. It's not like that. Like I said, it's just kind of a lot of the things like the rosary, the drinking, the smoking, stuff like that's kind of weird for me to see in these kinds of films. But that's really it. I mean, overall, I thought it was a well-shot film for the most part. It seems like there's some interesting choices here. I like how the people that apparently set up this, this scandalous situation for this pastor, played by James Remar, I think is his name. James Remar, I think. He was very good, by the way. The acting is mostly competent and pretty solid here, I would say. Most people really pull off a lot of the roles. There's one guy in this that's kind of like the sort of wolf in sheep's clothing best friend of James Remar's, pastor character, priest character, whatever he is. And he's kind of a jokester, kind of a Loki-ish kind of thing. I was kind of surprised that actor was as good as he was. He reminds me a lot of the guy that plays, I can't remember the guy's name. It was from Breaking Bad when I used to watch that. It was, the lawyer guy. I don't remember the name. Even so, you know what I mean? It's one of those things, he's just the kind of guy that mixes a lot of these sarcastic jokes, but he's kind of falling into the wrong hands, you know what I mean? That's what was happening with this particular character. That actor really pulled that off. James Remar does a lot of really interesting things here. There's only really like two people in the film that aren't that good, and that's pretty much the wife and kid of James Remar's character. And like I said, the way I've kind of described the plot, you see what I'm talking about people kind of saying, like, this is a film about Christian persecution in America. No, it's not. It's literally persecution about a guy that refused to say that this bill in America from the politicians was going to be okay. And then the thing that really gets me, and this is kind of spoiler territory, but the ending having to do with the president kind of making everything okay at the end of the day, how do we even explain that? If we're going to kind of delve into this Illuminati-based kind of thing and about how a lot of politicians and a lot of churches are too focused on money-making and tax stuff, how can we honestly sit there and try to say that that ending makes any sense if we're going to kind of, delve a little bit into the Illuminati field? Like, I don't get how that's even, how we can even try to say that's okay with the president guy in this film making his best Bill Clinton impersonation. Kind of funny to listen to, by the way. Um, Persecuted is not a bad movie. Like I said, it's kind of intriguing. It has some really big flaws in it. Like I said, like 2/3 of the movie being really boring and being really hard to kind of sit through and kind of stay awake through. I feel like there are some interesting kind of things that they do here. There's some interesting choices. I don't really know if someone that's not a Christian and not a Catholic either, just somebody that might be an atheist, for example, I don't know if I'd recommend this to them. It's got some pretty well done dramatic tension towards the end of the film. There's a couple of moments towards the end of the film where I honestly didn't know what was going to happen. Very, very well done, very well executed. There's some decent writing here. Like I said, there's some interesting topics that are kind of covered on in the third act that are never really brought up too much until the third act. That kind of are just intriguing ideas about, like I said, like people that are in the churches and whatnot, especially in Catholicism, that are just trying to make money. For example, like in the table where these councilmen kind of meet, they literally have a golden statue of a cow. That's literally in the Bible. not the table and everything, but the golden idol of a cow. Like, that's in there. And I'm like, even if these guys are involved with Catholicism, why would they have that there? You know what I mean? Like, that's just deliberately a sign that you're evil in this movie. And that's the thing, too. All the good guys in this film are Catholic, like legitimate Catholics. Like what a Catholic would consider a good Catholic, that's what they are. That's what the good guys are in this film. That might be obnoxious to some people. I don't think it's too heavy-handed. Like I said, I'm very surprised the film is not shoving, Catholic theology into your face. I'm really surprised by that. I have to pat them on the back for that. Overall, Persecuted is a very misleading title, but it has a lot of misleading, big, gigantic flaws about the film. But some of these things, like James Remar, like the third act completely, they really kind of strand it together and kind of make it a little worthwhile, I would say. If you can sit through this at least once, you might enjoy it. Some people are probably going to be bigger fans of this than I was. Even if you're a Christian, like me, for example, non-denominational and whatnot. Even if you're like me, and you're not Catholic, you might still enjoy this. Just in general. The filmmaking aspect, I think, is up to par with Pure Flix, for example. Maybe a little bit beyond that. I mean, Pure Flix can't really pull off drama. They do much better with lighthearted kind of comedy kinds of things, like What If and, what's another example? God's Not Dead, stuff like that, which has a lot of drama in God's Not Dead. I didn't think about that until now. But anyway, Persecuted is pretty well made. I have to say I'm really impressed with the directing. I feel like it's pretty, like I said, competent. It knows what it's doing, and it does it kind of well. I like the cinematography a lot of the time. There's some interesting choices every now and then. Like I said, there's one flashback where it's like, maybe our main character is having a dream. Maybe God is speaking to him in this dream. Maybe it's not even a dream. Maybe it's a vision in this particular dream that he's having. And it's like his wife speaking to him, but we don't hear the dialogue. It's completely inaudible. It's very interesting. I like some of this stuff. I'm kind of curious why they didn't really improve the first and second drafts. It feels like somebody went back to rewrite the film and only did the third draft, or the third act of the film, and didn't touch the first two. That's kind of what it feels like to me. If anybody else saw the film, let me know your thoughts on this. I'm very curious to hear what other people have to say about it. If I had to rate Persecuted, I'd probably give it about, on a 5-star scale, I might give it, it's kind of one of those tricky decisions, because there's so many good things in the third act and some interesting things throughout that I kind of want to give it a decent score. I would say maybe a 2.5 out of 5 stars. It's not the best movie ever, and for even it being advertised as like this big drama thing, it's not Harrison Ford in The Fugitive. It's nothing like that. It's not this big action-packed drama. But the third act, excuse me, the third act is so entertaining that I'm okay with it. Like, I feel like there's a lot of stuff here that could really bore you to death, but that third act, man, it's fun. It's really, that's the word for it. It's fun. It's very tension-driven. I really like that. I think the director did a really good job with that. Anyway, what are your thoughts on Persecuted? Put them in the comments section below. Thank you guys so much for being here for my review, and God bless you, and goodbye.